That dark patch creeping across your bathroom wall or your basement ceiling is not just an ugly mark. It is mold, a living thing growing and spreading. And it can be a real trouble to the health of your house and the people in it. Here is the bitter part. You go buy the $30 bottle at the store to kill it. You spray it. The wall looks clean again. And a few weeks later the mold is back, often worse than before. You are caught in a cycle that never ends, buying bottle after bottle, and the mold keeps coming back. Today I'm going to show you the old way to truly kill mold, and far more important, to keep it from ever coming back. And it costs you next to nothing. I am Emily. I keep this Lancaster County place with my own hands, the way my people always have. And mold is no new trouble. The old people dealt with it on their barns and cellars and dairy houses for as long as there have been such buildings. In damp stone cellars and milk houses where you would think mold would thrive, they kept those walls clean with a couple of cheap, plain things and a bit of knowing. No $30 bottle in sight. I'm going to give you what they used. First, the honest safety word: mold is a health matter, and I will not have anyone hurt. Mold can genuinely trouble the breathing and the health, especially for the very young, the old, and anyone with weak lungs or asthma. So it is worth taking seriously and not living with. A small patch on a hard surface, a careful body can handle themselves, which is what I'm showing you today. But a large spread of mold, a whole wall or worse, or the black mold or mold where someone in the house has poor health, that is a job to take seriously, and often a job for a professional with the right gear. There is no shame in calling one. If you do tackle even a small patch yourself, wear gloves and open a window. And for a worse spot, a proper mask that filters the spores, not just a paper one. Know your limits. A little patch you can manage. A great spreading trouble. Get help. And one more honest word. Do not just paint over mold and hope, nor scrub it away and ignore where it came from. Hiding it does not heal it. It only grows on unseen behind the paint and in the wall while you breathe its spores. Deal with it honestly and at the root, or do not pretend to have dealt with it at all. Why the store bottle fails you folks reach for bleach to kill mold. And here is the trouble. On a hard sealed surface like tile, it may do something. But on anything the mold can sink its roots into, the wood, the drywall, the grout, the concrete, the bleach does not truly kill it. It strips the colour off the mold at the surface, so the wall looks clean and white and you think you have won. But the roots of the mold down in the material live on. And worse, bleach is mostly water, and water is the very thing mold wants. So you have wetted the very spot the mold is feeding in. A few weeks on it grows right back, often darker than before because you watered its roots. That is the cycle that has you buying bottle after bottle. The surface clears, the root lives, the mold returns. You must kill the root. And for that, the old people had a better and cheaper thing than bleach. Think of mold like a weed. If you only cut off the green top of a weed and leave the root in the ground, it grows right back, and you have done nothing but tidy it for a week. The mold is just the same. The dark stain you see is only the top of it. Its roots run down into the wood or the grout or the concrete where you cannot see them. Bleach mows the top and leaves the root. To truly be rid of it, you must reach the root. And that is exactly what the old vinegar does that the bleach cannot. The first cheap answer: plain white vinegar. That thing is plain white vinegar, the same cheap vinegar from the kitchen. And it does what the bleach cannot. It sinks in and kills the mold down at the root. Here is how you use it. You do not dilute it. You use it full strength straight from the bottle. Watering it down only weakens it. Spray or wipe the undiluted vinegar right onto the mouldy spot. Soak it well. And then, and this is the important part, you walk away and leave it a full hour. That hour is when the real work happens. The vinegar soaking down through the mold and killing it at the root, not just bleaching the surface white. After the hour, you scrub it with a stiff brush and rinse with warm water. And then, most important of all, you dry the surface as thoroughly as you can. Any moisture left behind gives a surviving spore a foothold to start again. Plain cheap vinegar, a couple dollars the bottle, full strength, left an hour, scrubbed and dried. It kills far more of the mold and kills it deeper than the bleach ever did. A few plain notes. The smell of the vinegar is sharp, but it fades as it dries, and it is a wholesome smell, not the harsh fumes of bleach that catch in your throat. So you can use it in a closed bathroom without choking, though I would still crack a window for the spores you are stirring up. Use the ordinary white distilled vinegar, the cheap cleaning kind, not the cider or wine vinegars from the kitchen. It is the plain white that is cheapest and does the job. Give it the full hour. Do not rush it. It is in that quiet hour of soaking that the vinegar does what the bleach never could, reaching down to the root. Bleach works in a minute, but only skin deep. Vinegar takes an hour, but goes to the root. That hour of patience is the whole difference. The second cheap answer, baking soda. Once it is clean and dry, here is the second cheap thing that helps keep it from coming back. Your plain baking soda. You mix a bit of baking soda into water, about a quarter teaspoon to a cup, and you spray or wipe that over the same spot and let it dry. Do not rinse it off. Leave the dried residue right there. Here is why. Mold likes a sour acid sort of surface, and baking soda is the opposite. It is alkaline. That thin dried film of baking soda left on the wall makes the surface unfriendly to mold, trying to start again. It keeps working there for a good while after, quietly discouraging the mold from coming back. A few cents of baking soda left as a dry film standing guard. There is a small bonus in it. The baking soda also takes up and sweetens the musty mildew smell that mold leaves behind, the way it freshens a stale icebox. So the spot is not just guarded, but smelling clean. Vinegar to kill it at the root. Baking soda to guard the spot and sweeten it. Both of them cheap, plain things already in most every kitchen. The hard truth about damp. Now this vinegar and baking soda will clean up your mold and discourage it. And it works on near any surface. Your bathroom tile and grout, your window frames, your basement concrete, your wooden beams and brick. But here is the hard truth, and I will be straight with you as I always am. Killing the mold that is there does not keep it gone if the thing that caused it is still there. Mold needs damp to grow. And if you have a damp spot, a leaking pipe, a window that sweats, a basement with no air moving, poor airflow, then you will kill the mold, and it will simply grow back, because the damp that fed it is still feeding it. So the real fix is always two parts. Kill the mold that is there, and then find and fix the source of the damp that grew it. Mend the drip. Air out the room. Deal with the moisture, or you will be cleaning that spot forever. No cleaner on earth, cheap or dear, keeps mold gone while the wall stays wet. Play the detective, find your damp. Is it a bathroom with no window and no fan, where the steam of every shower hangs in the air with nowhere to go? Then you must get air moving. Open a window, run a fan, let it dry between. Is it a basement that smells damp and earthy? Then it wants air and perhaps a way to carry off the moisture. Is it a corner under a window that sweats and drips in the cold weather, the condensation running down? Is it a slow drip from a pipe behind the wall? Each of these has its own fix, but the principle is one. Find where the wet is coming from and stop it. The mold is only the sign. The damp is the disease. Cure the damp and the mold has nothing to grow on. Leave the damp, and you will fight the mold forever. The real old secret, lime whitewash. And that brings me to the best part, the real old secret. The thing that is the very reason those old barns and cellars built 200 years ago show no mold to this day. It is not a cleaner you put on after the mold comes. It is a thing built into the wall from the start that keeps the mold from ever growing at all. It is the old lime whitewash. This is a genuinely old way. The real thing the old farmers and the Amish have brushed onto their barn walls and cellar walls and dairy house walls for generations. That plain white coating you have seen on an old barn. Why it works so against mold. The whitewash is made with lime, and lime is powerfully alkaline, far more so even than the baking soda. So alkaline that no mold nor mildew can grow on it at all. A wall coated in lime whitewash is simply a surface mold cannot colonize. That is why those old whitewashed cellars and milk houses, damp as they are, stay clean of mould year after year, decade after decade, where a modern painted wall in the same damp would be black with it. And it does more than stop mould. That same lime is naturally cleansing and sweetening, which is the very reason the old farmers whitewashed not just their cellars, but their chicken coops and their outbuildings and their fences, to keep them clean and wholesome and free of the rot and the vermin and the foul air. A coat of whitewash was the old all-purpose answer for keeping a place sweet and clean. And it cost almost nothing. The old recipe. The salt in the mix helps it hold and harden, and the lime does the cleansing and the mould proofing. The whole of it brushed on cures to that hard, clean, breathing white coat that lasts for years before it wants freshening. The old recipe is simple and cheap past believing. It is water, salt, and hydrated lime, which is also called mason's lime or builder's lime. And mind you, that is the hydrated lime for building, not the garden lime. They are not the same. A common old proportion is about a gallon of water, a couple pounds of salt, and several pounds of the hydrated lime brushed onto the wall and let to cure. A bag of hydrated lime costs only a few dollars at the building supply store and is enough to coat a whole room, even several rooms. A little of the powder makes up a deal of whitewash. Compare that to the cost of the dear bottles or the mould removal man, and you see why the old farmers who had little money and much sense swore by it. A few dollars of lime brushed on once and freshened now and again over the years against an endless run of $30 bottles that never quite fix it. The old way was cheaper by far and worked better besides. A word of safety. I will give you the safety on this plainly, for hydrated lime is caustic stuff. It will burn the skin and the eyes, so you wear gloves and eye protection when you mix and brush it and keep it off your skin. Used with that care, it is perfectly safe and has been used for centuries. Why modern homes have mould and old farms did not. And here is one more honest piece that ties it together. And it is the reason so many modern homes have mould the old farms never did. The modern paints, the acrylic paints off the hardware store shelf, seal the wall up tight and do not breathe. So when moisture moves through the wall from the damp ground, from humidity, from a pipe, it cannot escape through that sealed painted surface, and it builds up trapped behind the paint, making the wall damp and dark, the very thing mould wants. The old lime whitewash is the opposite. It breathes. It lets the moisture move right through it and dry away. So the wall never holds the damp that mould needs. The old walls stayed dry and clean because the very coating on them let them breathe. The modern sealed wall traps the damp and grows the mould. That is the heart of the difference. Think of it like the difference between a wool coat and a rubber slicker. The wool breathes. It lets the damp of your body pass out through it and you stay dry and comfortable. The rubber slicker seals everything in. And after a while you are clammy and wet inside it from your own dampness with nowhere to go. The old lime is the wool, the modern sealing paint is the rubber slicker, and the wall behind it is left clammy and damp. Just the home mould wants. A wall, like a body, wants to breathe. When you seal it up tight, you make trouble you cannot see till it blooms black on the surface. Why the cheap old answers got forgotten. Let me say the small honest word about why your grandmother's cheap mould answers got forgotten and you were sold the $30 bottle instead. Not to rile you up, just so you see the shape of it. There is a great deal of money in mould, in the bottles sold at the store at $8, $20, $40 each, bought again and again because they do not truly fix it, and in the costly mould removal work when it gets bad. And there is no money at all in a man knowing that a $2 jug of vinegar and a few dollar bag of lime will do better. You cannot patent vinegar. You cannot own baking soda or lime, nor charge dear for them, for anyone can buy them plain and cheap. So nobody advertises them, nobody builds a business teaching them. And over a couple of generations, the cheap old answers simply fell out of common knowing, while the dear bottles got all the telling. I'm not saying a man schemed to bury your grandmother's recipe. No one had to. It is worse than a conspiracy, because it is a system nobody had to coordinate. It simply pays to sell a dear bottle again and again, and pays nothing to teach the cheap thing that works. And so the cheap thing went quietly untaught, not hidden by any plotter, just left unsaid because no one profited by saying it. The old people knew these things because they had to, and there was no mystery in them at all. Breaking the restrictions. Now I want to speak plain about something that weighs on my heart. In my community, we keep to ourselves. We hold our old ways close. And there is a beauty in that, a preserving of things that might otherwise be lost. But I have come to see that some knowledge was never meant to be kept behind walls. The old ways of keeping a house sound and wholesome, these are not secrets meant only for the few. They are gifts that belong to everyone. The earth gives us vinegar and lime and baking soda. These are not inventions. They are discoveries. Plain things that have always been here, waiting to be understood. And the knowing of how to use them is not property, it is inheritance, so I am breaking the old silence, not out of disrespect for my people, but out of love for all the people who are breathing mold spores in their homes because they were never told the cheap plain answer. The old folks who built this country with their hands, they did not keep their knowledge for themselves. They shared it across fences and at market and around the table. That is how communities survived. That is how the old ways travelled. I am Emily, and I am Amish. But more than that, I am a woman who has seen the difference a little knowing makes, and I cannot keep it to myself any longer. The whole of it. So there is the whole of it. The cheap old way to kill mould and keep it gone. Kill what is there with plain full-strength vinegar soaked an hour, scrubbed and dried. Leave a film of baking soda to discourage its return. Find and fix the damp that fed it, for nothing keeps mould gone while the wall stays wet. And for the real lasting prevention, the old lime whitewash that breathes and that no mould can grow upon. The very thing that has kept the old barns and cellars clean for 200 years. A few dollars of plain old things, and a bit of knowing against the endless $30 bottles that never truly fix it. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments below, where does the mould keep coming back in your house? The same damp spot every time, I will wager. And have you been caught in that cycle of spraying and spraying with the store bottle? Tell me your county and your climate. Because the damp differs greatly across the country, wet coasts and dry plains, and the mould with it. I like to map it by where you all write from. I read everyone, and I learned the damp corners of the whole country from them. What comes next? Next time, I want to show you the full old way of mixing and brushing on a lime whitewash step by step. How to make it up and lay it on a cellar or a wall or an outbuilding so you can coat your own damp spots with that breathing mould-proof old coating and keep them clean for years. The way the old barns have stayed clean for centuries. The old people kept their damp cellars and barns clean of mould for generations with a jug of vinegar and a brush of lime. Plain, cheap things and the knowing of how to use them. And their 200-year-old walls stand clean to this day to prove it. There is a deep plain wisdom in that we traded away for a shelf of dear bottles that never quite work. The wall that breathes and stays dry is the wall that remembers how the old builders kept a house sound. The people who built this country with their hands knew that, and we are only just starting to remember. Thank you for listening. Share this with someone who is fighting mould and losing. It might be the answer they never knew existed. I am Emily, and I keep this place with my own hands. The old ways are not lost. They are just waiting to be remembered.